Okay, so today we're going to go over everything that you need to know about how to do a pull-up. Firstly, let's discuss the key muscles involved in a pull-up. Now, there's three big muscles that are mainly involved in the pull-up. That's going to be your lats, your biceps, and your brachialis. Now, that is not to say that there aren't other muscles engaged, especially in your upper back, like your traps, your rhomboids, your core. But those are the big three that I would say contribute the most to a pull-up. So now let's go over all the key cues for the pull-up, okay? So starting firstly with a pseudo false grip, which basically means that you rotate the knuckles over the bar, okay? Rather than your knuckles pointing to the ceiling. Then before the pull-up, once we've stepped off, we're gonna lean back and retract our shoulder blades. And then we have to activate our lats. And to do this, we're going to picture bending that bar to activate our lats, a little bit of internal rotation. And then as we initiate the first pull, we want to initiate it with a slight arc. So what we're going to do is we're going to lean back, but we're going to push our feet ever so slightly forwards. Then as we start pulling up, we're going to think about driving our elbows down and back to get us over the bar. Once we're over the top of the bar, it's important to make sure that you control yourself on the way down and that you're not letting gravity do the work. You're trying to fight gravity. So now I want to quickly talk about the different types of grips. So you heard me say that a pseudo false grip is the best grip to help you with those pull-ups, okay? And to see that more clearly, what I want you to think about, so a natural grip for us is when we grip, our knuckles are pointing straight to the ceiling, okay? A pseudo false grip, however, is going from this position to our knuckles being slightly over and a slight bend in the wrist here, okay? Now, a true full false grip, I don't recommend doing this. This is normally for people trying to do like muscle ups, or maybe if you're using the rings as a gymnast. But a full false grip is that you're going to get the part of the bar onto like this part of the wrist here. And so you have to wrap your hand around the bar. And this is why it's really awkward with a straight bar like this. With the rings, it works a little bit better. But then the only other thing to think about as well is this isn't technically a pull-up, but it's a chin-up. If I have the bar, so I'm facing the bar, and I bring my palm so it's facing me, this is going to be slightly easier than the pull-up, and it's going to bring in a lot more bicep, and it's going to help you get a few more reps. But again, it's not a true pull-up, but those are the kinds of variations that you can have with your grip. So now let's talk about some exercises that can help you achieve more pull-ups or help you achieve your first pull-up, okay? There are lots of exercises that can help contribute to basically any exercise that works the lats, anything to do with the back, the arms, and even a little bit of the core as well. But these three exercises that I have for you have the most carryover towards doing a pull-up. So the first and most relevant one is going to be banded pull-ups, okay? This obviously teaches you a lot about how to be able to do the pull-up and the pure technique of the pull-up. So this is why this has the most carryover. It is always awkward getting into the bands, but trust me, once you practice it a few times, you'll be a-okay. And you just have to try and find the band that makes it easy enough that you can maybe get up to somewhere like 10 reps, depending on what your rep goal is. Next exercise we have here is slightly different because this isn't going to require maybe as much core control. It's just going to be kind of for the pull down movement, and that's the lat pull down. Now I'm doing this sat on the floor with this bar here. However, you might have a machine that does this for you and lets you pin your legs into the machine. I'd recommend using that. But again, this has a lot of carryover to that pull up and is going to help improve your back strength. And then hopefully over time, as that weight goes up on the lat pull down, you find your pull ups a lot easier. Now, this next exercise I have for you is a hammer grip / semi-pronated curl. Now, this is basically going to get you into a position that is very similar to that you do a pull-up in. Because when we do our pull-ups, and if we compare it to our bicep curls, we don't have our palms facing up. Otherwise, that's going to be a chin-up, okay? And when we go into a hammer grip curl, we also don't pull up with our palms facing one another, okay? We actually want to rotate a little bit more so that our palms are kind of like 45 degrees, like pointing down towards the ground and then curling from there. Again, that is going to be have a lot more carryover to the pull-up compared to something like a bicep curl or a hammer curl. So now let's quickly talk about the programming to try and get yourself to heavier pull-ups or maybe your first pull-up. So whenever you're training your back, or maybe you're training chest and back in the same day, if your top priority and your main goal is to be able to do a pull-up, always do your most relevant pull-up exercise at the start of the session. So for example, if I can't do a pull-up yet, I will start with the banded pull-ups, or maybe I would start with the lat pull-down. Whatever variation is closest to the pull-up itself, I would start with that, okay? And then when I'm programming for it, is the same rules for hypertrophy and strength apply to this. There's nothing special that you have to do. So if you're going for hypertrophy, 8 to 15 reps, 3 to 5 sets, 30 seconds rest, maybe up to 3 minutes. And then for strength, 5 reps or less, a long rest in between, and then you can do sets of like 3 to 5 of these. But the same rules apply as it is for any other exercise. But then obviously after you've done those, if you're still trying to work up to your pull-up after you've done your main pull-up exercise throughout the session, try and add in, for example, those semi-pronated bicep curls. Try and add those in, and then any other exercises that is relevant to the pull-up. So for example, it could be a straight bar pullover, anything that sort of targets the lats, the back, the biceps. Just add those in towards the end. Again, applying the same rules for hypertrophy slash strength, but probably aiming for those exercises more towards hypertrophy. I'd recommend doing the strength focus just for your main lift. So whether that's your banded pull-ups, lat pull-downs, or pull-ups itself. You can also add weight to the pull-ups. If you're someone who's already very experienced and strong at pull-ups, add weight to it. If you can do 10 pull-ups, but you want to aim for strength, add some weight to it so that you're failing towards like 5 reps, maybe less. So there you have it. There's everything you need to know to help get you to maybe your first pull-up or maybe getting you to stronger pull-ups. So let me know how you get on, and good luck when you try this out there, guys.